Evolution must have done me dirty, because I cannot stop eating ice cream sandwiches and cannot focus working at my desk and cannot create a stable sleeping schedule for the life of me. My mind and body are often misaligned with what naturally feels good and what actually is good for me. It's almost like we didn't evolve to be in the world that we're living in. And yeah, we really didn't. Animals evolve around their environment. They have from the jump. If it's a cold Arctic, we need thick fur to stay warm. If it's a hot desert, then we need a way to store water and keep from overheating. Humans, however, are very unique in our ability to learn and create things. And after a couple thousand years of that, we started learning and creating solutions to the environment itself. That means if it's cold, we can make fire and jackets and shelter. And if it's hot, we can make fans and air conditioning and shelter. If it's raining, we can make umbrellas and raincoats and also shelter. Shelter is like really amazing. Underrated human invention, the house. At this point, it's second nature that we try to control the environment around us. We can change the temperature of the house if it's too hot or too cold. We fly on planes to go to places that normally would take us several lifetimes to go to. We change the speed of YouTube videos to match how we want it, damn it. We build roads and sewers and erect massive buildings. Animals evolve around their environment, but we now control that. And because evolution takes a long time to develop new traits, our old traits, which were good for our old environment, have a bit of trouble keeping up with our fancy new ones. These are called evolutionary mismatches, or environmental mismatches. It's when a trait that is advantageous becomes worthless or even maladaptive due to a change in the environment. This can happen in other animals too if an event changes the environment, like a drought evaporating all the water in a swamp, making a frog with skin adapted for humid environments to dry up and die. For humans, we spent 99% of our evolutionary time as tribal hunter-gatherers in the savannas of Africa, before going to Europe and Asia for a bit. But if you showed a human from those previous times the concrete jungle of a downtown city, they would be like, what the fuck? But if you raise them as a baby in our modern society, they would just grow up to be a normal human, because we aren't that evolutionarily different from older humans. We're all just Homo sapiens. That means that there is a huge environmental mismatch between the traits that we evolved and the modern environments that we're exposed to. Quick side note to say that this isn't for every human. People lived in drastically different environments all around the world, and some have even been living in the same place for thousands of generations. So some people still do live as hunter-gatherers, but even for these people, the world around them is still drastically different through contact with other human civilizations and the damage that other humans have done to the nature that they live in. So I think that they still deal with the mismatches, just maybe not as blatantly. And that's compared to the modern suburb city-dwelling fella like me. For us, evolutionary mismatches definitely have a much larger effect on our lives than we might think. I'll break it down with a model found in a 2018 paper. So, evolved mechanisms in any environment start with an input, like natural food sources. And in order to promote acquiring those things, we need an energy-obtaining mechanism, which for us is sweet things taste good. The adaptive output from this mechanism is the promotion of eating fruits and berries, honey, to get the calories and vitamins needed for survival. This changes though when the input becomes mismatched with the mechanism. So if manufactured foods are the input, the energy obtaining mechanism is still the same. It's still that sweet things taste good. But with these new inputs, it ends up with the promotion of drinking soda and eating candy and desserts. So what once was an adaptive behavior is now interacting with our new environment in a maladaptive way. Humans have a lot of these confirmed mismatches and even more speculated ones. To rattle off some examples, we have increased nearsightedness due to not constantly being outside and looking far into the distance. We have wisdom teeth because our jaws evolved for rougher and harder methods of chewing food. Now our food is cooked and tender, so our jaws don't need to be so big, and so some teeth have nowhere to go. We also have weaker gut microbiomes because of our cleaner modern diet, potentially leading to weaker immune health overall. There are also mental mismatches like anxiety, which used to be so that we would be on high alert in an area where there was a tiger so we could get up and leave. Nowadays, we get anxious about seeing someone from high school that you don't want to talk to, or about what the hell I'm gonna do for the rest of my life after I graduate. There are so many anxiety-inducing inputs for modern humans that what is a real threat and what is a perceived threat now gets messed up, meaning higher rates of anxiety overall. Another example is consumer psychology, which are often evolutionary desires that companies try to exploit. It's an entire field in itself, but one example is adding plant images to logos or stores because it apparently enhances consumer attraction and perceived service quality. And last one, some researchers think that smartphones meet the human needs of self-disclosure and responsiveness that would only normally be satisfied from having a close relationship with somebody, potentially hindering smartphone users' abilities to form close relationships. These are all issues caused from us creating novel environments or novel ways to deal with our environment. But mismatches can also happen when we go places that we didn't evolve in. Like imagine a frog hopping over to a desert where it dries up and dies. A very common one now is the relationship between melanin and sunlight exposure. So my roommate, who is much more melanated than I am, told me that he was vitamin D deficient, so he had to take a lot of vitamin D because of his skin tone. The way it works is that paler skin is better at synthesizing vitamin D, but is more susceptible to UV ray damaging, making it better for places that get less sun. And darker skin is the other way around. Lots of protection from UV radiation, but it's not as good as synthesizing vitamin D, so it's good for very sunny places. I happen to live in North America, which has longer winters, but with people of all different complexions living here, different people need different products to deal with this same local environment that they wouldn't necessarily need in their ancestral environment. Another example of one of these spatial mismatches is immune resistance. So when Europeans came to North America, all the indigenous people here caught terrible plagues that they weren't adapted to, that the Europeans didn't even realize they carried dormantly. The immigrants were immune because they had evolved with these things, but the native people here weren't, resulting in a mismatch where foreign particles became native diseases. So if mismatches can happen across time and space, just how many modern issues are caused by them? Is the evolved desire to have a lot in order to feed yourself and your family the same greed that drives billionaires to exploit the less fortunate for their own continued gain? Do people cheat on their spouses because of our evolved urge to procreate with as many people as possible and raise our evolutionary fitness? Do YouTubers make apology videos crying and overly apologetic in order to play for our evolved sense of sympathy? The answer to all of these is maybe a little bit, but we don't fully know. Well, the YouTuber one I do know, they definitely do that. Like most concepts in science, this is incredibly complex and we don't know anything really about it. It's sometimes hard to identify whether something is the cause of a mismatch or not, and it's all still being worked on today. So it's important, as always, to address our science with a healthy amount of skepticism and not to make too many conclusions. But do we know enough to make any conclusion from all this? Should we return to monkey and go back to living as tribal hunter-gatherers? Should I get the hell out of North America and return to my ancestral environment of somewhere in central China? The answer is no. And please don't send me back, I like it here. Understanding how our minds and bodies have evolved can help us take advantage of them. In the case of mental stresses like anxiety, we can identify what the cause of these mismatches are and use modern techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy to try and treat them. The same goes for understanding nutrition in order to be healthier. Despite manufactured foods being everywhere and being more addictive and unhealthy, we can still create healthy diets, much healthier than any previous human could have ever had, accessible with the ease of going to the same grocery stores that we get our unhealthy stuff at. My perspective is that the issues caused by evolutionary mismatches are a consequence of how good we have it. They're issues, yes, but they stem from the solutions to our generally much more threatening issues. Like, I'll take working at my desk over waking up and having to go catch my breakfast. So yes, people grow extra teeth and have a hard time not drinking soda, but people also live longer and can travel all around the world. It's like evolutionary mismatches are the residues of the issues that we solved from our ancestral environment. And the fact that we were able to solve those issues makes me pretty optimistic that we can probably figure out how to solve the mismatches caused from solving those issues. We learned how to fix our environments, so now it's time to fix our minds and bodies in response to that. The fact that we don't belong in this world might be a testament to how brilliantly we've changed changed it. That's just my perspective, of course. There is a fully valid other perspective that believes our modern environment results in much worse things like war and capitalistic greed and climate change. So it's really up to you for how you view it. So let me know. Do you think our modern environment is better and mismatches are just an unfortunate side effect? Or do you think these mismatches are going to be enough to make us regret creating a modern environment at all? Now, I hope this video wasn't a mismatch for your recommended page, but if you enjoyed this or disagreed with something I said, feel free to leave a comment. I read all of them. And honestly, I just wanted to say thank you for the comments on my last video. Really warmed my heart to get so much support from people watching who can see that I'm a much smaller channel yet choose to be nice anyway. Thank you, I really appreciate the support. I will try to keep it up. And yeah.